from my side, and now I would like to welcome Isabel from IUCN, who will tell us a bit more about the collaborative project we have. Because I said all about collaboration, we wanted to bring our action up to make it more robust and consistent, and for that we started this project. So over to you.
Is it? I thought it was small enough so I could not hold it. Okay, so hi. As Adam introduced me, my name is Isabel. I work for the International Union for Conservation of Nature in the water and land management team, so very much focused on water, but in the broader context, of course, of land management. And we're currently collaborating with NMWE on a biodiversity strategy. For those of you who don't know IUCN so well, IUCN is a membership union with more than 1,400 member organizations from civil society, governmental organizations, and indigenous peoples organizations, together with all of these members and 15,000 experts in our commissions. We harness this collective knowledge to kind of set a baseline on the natural state of the world and conservation tools and actions that we need to take with the global mission of sustainable development and creating a just world that conserves and values nature. So the question, as Adam has already mentioned, why do we care? Why do we care about freshwater biodiversity? Well, as you know, as the planet is in crisis, freshwater biodiversity is in crisis. Globally, we're losing wetlands 3 times faster than forests, even though often the focus is on forests, but wetlands are being drained and converted on a daily basis. Especially in Europe, we've seen this in the last 300 years. Half of the wetlands have been lost in Europe, and in the last 50 years, 83% of biodiversity globally has declined. And as Adam already outlined, so this is not just a problem for this little frog, it's a problem for all of us collectively. So what is the world doing about it? We created this forest of directives and policies and incentives. This is just on European level, on policies that should conserve, set incentives to conserve nature and biodiversity specifically. Of course, all of these EU policies and directives are under the global post-2020 biodiversity strategy and the Paris Climate Agreement, and those in turn all strive to reach the sustainable development goals that the world is trying to reach. So going from global again to local, what are we doing with NMWE specifically to fulfill this need to work against this crisis and fulfill policies? So IUCN is in a collaboration with NMWE. The mission is to enable NMWE to deliver a commitment to the EU Code of Conduct through the development of a biodiversity monitoring strategy, a framework, and this framework is nested in a roadmap for water stewardship. So in the bigger picture of water stewardship. So this collaboration, so this mission will be delivered through, of course, it's always about a baseline, a review. What are NMWE members doing? How are NMWE members engaging, and how can we engage them to care about biodiversity, or not just care, but to actually scale up the biodiversity actions? What's the biodiversity monitoring approach that we will be looking at? We will look at impact of the sector and create this biodiversity strategy and framework in the context of water stewardship. So far we looked at the first part. So we need to set the baseline. What is the sector already doing? What is the sector doing well? Where does it need some adjustment? So we, together with NMWE, rolled out a survey to all of their members to establish this baseline of policies and practices. The members answered questions on demographic information, sustainability, commitments, policies, standards, reporting, and risk assessment. We received 46 responses, and as you saw, the membership in NMWE is diverse, so there are national associations that answered the questionnaire, independent companies, multinationals, and subsidiaries under these multinationals. So today I want to focus on the independent companies and the multinationals. From independent companies, we received 18 responses. They operate in 8 different countries. And for the independent companies, it's very important to highlight that they really differ in sizes, and this differentiation in size is really important for the outcome. So there's smaller, medium, and large companies, and then of course we received responses from 5 multinationals that are of course all larger companies. So we were asking, what are your sustainability commitments? Do you have sustainability commitments in the first place? All of the larger companies, including all the multinationals, said yes, we do have clear sustainability commitments, either public or internal. The mid-sized companies mostly as well, but small companies do not have such commitments. If you go a little bit deeper and, okay, what are these commitments about? You can see that, of course, most of them are about water, as it's the main resource of the sector. But also they focus on climate change and corporate responsibility. And here on the one for me it's the left, biodiversity protection and management is not so well represented in sustainability commitments. The picture was very similar with policies and directives, sustainability policies, and often biodiversity doesn't have a standalone policy, but is nested within other policies. We also asked a question on reporting and certification. So all 5 multinationals report annually on sustainability matters, and the larger independent companies also report on sustainability matters using different standards. So there's, for example, the Global Reporting Initiative, Alliance for Water, Stewardship, and the EU Code of Conduct. And the smaller companies said, well, so either they don't even know about some of the standards, just because there's no capacity to actually look into the standards and fulfill all the criteria of these standards. And the sustainability performance indicators that are reported on, again, similar picture to before, to the commitments. Energy, waste, and water are well represented. They're well represented indicators, but biodiversity and other emissions other than CO2, because the world very much focuses, of course, on carbon emissions. There are no strong performance indicators on these topics. So then we wanted to validate the discussion, of course, the survey results, and have discussions with company members, because this project is also about shared learning between different sectors. So we had discussions with national associations and independent companies, and takeaways were, okay, we offer companies and national associations. There is a lot of, as Adam mentioned, there's a lot of action on the ground, but there are no formal commitments to kind of group all of these actions together. As always, with everything, data collection and documentation is difficult. It's always a difficulty, especially for smaller companies that just don't have the capacity for it. Again, diversity of companies, so we need to really take into account the diversity of companies. Are they larger, smaller? In which local context are they operating? And there are sustainability actions, but they're not always focused on biodiversity, even though they influence biodiversity. Actions influence biodiversity, but this is just not highlighted. So we received some recommendations and needs from these discussions. So there is a clear need for clear guidelines and best practices. We need to highlight the important role of the mineral water sector, of the companies in biodiversity conservation in a larger scale. Engagement with local stakeholders is essential for success. And there's a need for a simple quantitative reporting mechanism for NMWE members, so they can actually take action and then showcase what kind of action they are taking. So speaking about actions, We received a lot of examples of actions that are being taken already in the sector, and we grouped them into renaturation, restoration, for example, the mosquito restoration projects or invasive species removal projects. Then other actions are linked to civil society engagement, which is mostly on capacity building, teaching in schools. I think we'll hear more later about this. Water stewardship, of course, as the main resource, so groundwater aquifer protection, ensuring river connectivity, and agriculture as it influences the resource water extremely. So to incentivize farmers to use less pesticides, promote and create meadows and create insect hotels and beekeeping, so to increase the number of pollinators. So on our road to this biodiversity framework, we already had a first workshop with industry experts and experts on biodiversity monitoring and water stewardship. During this first workshop, which just happened last week in Brussels, we set a goal for the biodiversity strategy. We haven't finally formalized it, but the key word, as Adam has mentioned, is collaboration. So collaborative action for a healthy catchment. So collaboration and also looking at catchment level. And the other keyword there is healthy. So what is healthy? That also needs to be clearly defined, and that message needs to come across clearly. We discussed the process on how we will go about to create this biodiversity framework and guidance. And then we spoke about, okay, what are the criteria for the indicators that we want to create, that we want to set? And of course, these are biodiversity indicators. But an indicator should not just look at biodiversity. So you can come up with a long list of indicators, but then the short list of indicators, it needs to be indicators that look at biodiversity, climate, and water stewardship, which benefits society and livelihoods. So very much aligned with the nature-based solutions concept. So that's where we are. We are in the middle of this process. We had our first workshop. Now actually the work starts to condense all of this information. We'll have a second workshop, and the output will be a report with recommendations. So thanks for listening. Thanks, Adam.
Thank you, Isabel. And now I would like to invite our panelists, Zoe, Isabel, Klára, and Achim. You can take the seat here. Should not be in the way of the presentation. Good. I forgot to say in the beginning that we are also streaming this, and we have some online participation. So the aim is now to have a little discussion, and of course then we will take some questions and comments if you will have, and also people online will be free to write into the chat or even raise a hand. I'm not sure if it's possible to speak, but if it is, then we will put the sound up and we will hear their questions. So I would like to welcome Zoe Greindl here from Business for Nature, sorry, and she's a business action advisor, seconded by Accenture. She led the Business for Nature's engagement with the World Economic Forum and the World Business Council for Sustainable Development to create sector-specific actions for businesses to act on nature. Then we have Isabel Wallnöfer, that introduced from IUCN, and then Klára Hálová, she's from the Czech mineral water company Mattoni 1873, and she's the head of water category, and she's an extremely active person on sustainability. She's at the same time the chair of Natural Mineral Waters Environmental and Sustainability Committee. And finally we have Achim from Nestlé Waters, who is also an active chair of the the European, the National Mineral Waters Environmental and Sustainability Committee, and he's basically coordinating the sustainability action in Nestlé waters. I would start with a question for Zoe. Business for Nature is also an important stakeholder in the development of guidelines or guidance for the sectors. Can you tell us a bit more about Business for Nature, how you work, and how your work fits into what we have been just presenting here?
Great, thank you so much. Hi everyone, my name is Zoe Greindl. As Adam said, I'm part of Business for Nature's business action team. So I'm coming here on behalf of Business for Nature, and we are a global coalition of 86 different members. So some of them you can see on screen. IUCN is one of our key partners, and we bring together influential companies and organizations towards that can act and advocate for nature. Our main aim, what we aim to do, is to drive business action and policy ambition to achieve a nature-positive economy for all by 2030. So those two pillars, business action and policy ambition, we think really create a positive feedback loop that can transform our economy into one that values nature. So with businesses acting, that gives governments the confidence that ambitious policies are welcome, which then facilitates the transition for businesses as well. The term nature positive that you can see on screen is really a societal global goal to rally all parts of society must rally towards, whether that's governments, individuals, NGOs, businesses. Ultimately, a nature positive world by 2030 is about having more nature in 2030 than there is today. Now that nature positive mission is really at the heart of the global biodiversity framework's 2030 mission to halt and reverse biodiversity loss by 2030, which will help us on our journey towards a 2050 vision of living in harmony with nature. So the Global Biodiversity Framework, agreed in Montreal in 2022, December, was really a historic moment because it was the first time that governments stated so explicitly what they expect from businesses on nature. In particular, Target 15, so there's 23 targets that we're working towards for this 2030 mission, but Target 15 will require all large companies, including water companies, and financial institutions to assess and disclose their risks, their impacts, dependencies, and risks on nature. So this is really the target the 400 businesses rallied behind and advocated for in the run-up to COP as part of the Make It Mandatory campaign. What that means concretely is that governments are now working on their national biodiversity strategy and action plans that will translate the global biodiversity framework into national plans. And this will really be a really clear signal to businesses that they need to start acting to reduce their impacts and dependencies on nature and move towards this nature-positive economy. Companies can expect greater regulation, and I think that addresses to some of the challenges you were talking about earlier. There's not enough mainstreaming, there's not enough systemization yet or legislation, but the Global Biodiversity Framework will really be a key push towards enabling that, especially once each country's national biodiversity strategy and action plan is developed. And companies can also expect, on top of greater regulation, greater expectation from their customers who really want more sustainable products and services, but also from their employees who increasingly want to work for sustainable companies. So to meet these expectations, but also to protect themselves from nature-related risks, which we know in the water sector are so prominent because of how core nature is to water, businesses really need to ask themselves, what are we doing to contribute to a nature-positive economy by 2030? And how are we embedding the value of nature in our decision-making? So what you can see on screen is the high-level actions that Business for Nature, along with key partners that are on screen, developed that frames the 4 key things that businesses must do. And I think this framework is really helpful because it brings together what those actions are across different sectors, and then businesses can, within each sector, go towards more specialized resources, like all the guidance developed by NMWE, to see what concretely they can do within their sector, but by having this cross-sector framework that enables the same language to be used for businesses to talk to other businesses in different sectors about what they're doing on nature. So those 4 actions are first to assess, so understand what your impacts and dependencies are, how large are they, what are the key material ones, to then commit, start setting targets, which we heard from you is something that is kind of lacking in the water sector. There's not a lot of formal commitments. To work towards transforming, so embedding those, all the actions that you showed on screen earlier, Isabel, to start really embedding them in business as usual and transforming business activities. So that's through avoiding and reducing the negative impacts that were identified in the assess stage, restoring and regenerating landscapes and seascapes, waterscapes, and then finally transforming, shifting business models and advocating for policy ambition. Throughout that whole journey, it's really important to disclose as well any material nature-related information, and again, that helps that whole piece of cross-sector collaboration, engagement with other parties if all that information is disclosed, accessible, and able to be digested by different stakeholders that businesses engage with. So what we've been working on is, there's a lot of work by lots of organizations to help companies along this journey. But in particular, if you look at transform, that's something that we felt was slightly lagging in terms of companies are starting to understand how to assess, how to measure, but there's no clear guidance at the scale of many sectors of what the key actions are to do to transform. So we've been working with the World Economic Forum and the World Business Council for Sustainable Development, along with lots of other organizations that have provided input and support towards providing clear and tangible sector-specific actions for businesses to contribute to a nature-positive future. So we've got the 12 sectors on screen, and I'm happy to share a link as well as to, so you can access that guidance. But for each sector, we've highlighted what are the key impacts of the sector on nature, what are the key dependencies, and what are the priority actions that businesses should take if they want to contribute to a nature-positive future. And I think a lot of the actions you'll see are really similar to some of the recommendations that were made from your talk just earlier. But an interesting last thing I want to call out is that it's interesting to see the importance to collaborate with other sectors, because actually water is a recurring theme towards, in all of these different sectors, it came up as one of the key impacts and one of the key actions towards adopting water stewardship methods in the agri-food sector, in the built environment, in chemicals, in cement. So although we've got a water-specific guide, it's actually a theme that comes through across all of these sectors.
Thank you very much, Zoe, for this introduction. Zoe mentioned that businesses need to take an immediate action. So we have 2 representatives of businesses. I would like to ask each of you, you can tell us what is the immediate action you are already taking, and maybe shortly, but more importantly, if you are the ones that are already taking the action, why do you need the project that Isabel was presenting? Why is it important for you to actually have some kind of a sectorial action and a framework and a strategy on the sector level?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Hello. I would probably start with the second part of the questions. I am the girl from the East, and in Eastern European countries, it's sometimes a little bit difficult, and we really need to have some kind of guidelines. We are talking about biodiversity, and it's about diversity in the projects as well. As it is nature, like I can clearly see, we are operating in Czech Republic, Slovakia, Austria, Hungary, Serbia as well, and Bulgaria. And of course, like in each country has different needs, and we would really appreciate to have some kind of guidelines. And as well, you know, the tools also for smaller companies, because yes, we are quite a big company, so we are anyway obliged, but from the sectorial level, let's say, it is very difficult for small and medium-sized companies to to engage them and to buy them for the idea of biodiversity protection. So that's the answer for the second part of the question. And for the first one, like we are assessing what are the needs in each of the country where we are operating. So for example, in the Czech Republic, we started with, of course, like with the pieces of land that we are owning, and we said like, okay, so what we are, of course, like protecting our sources, but what we can do more. And we started to compare the maps of protection with our maps of property, let's say, and we came into the 5 pages long list with protected species, and we said like, okay, so what to do with that? And at the end of the day, and it is really about collaboration, we started to collaborate with the Czech Conservationist Union to help us to define like what to do in a more structured ways, and we started to protect the meadows and the pollinators, specifically butterflies, because they are common in all our 6 sites that we have in the Czech Republic. But the situation is completely different in other countries. For example, in Hungary, we have the site that is in the nature park, so we don't have so many possibilities to do the real actions there. But then finally we just found out that there is from old communist times still the system of drainages from the fields. So we are really trying to convince the and to run the stakeholders dialogue in order to close those drainages, the pipes that are taking out the water from the fields, which is not necessary anymore with the droughts that we are facing there. So what I wanted to say is just that each of the country has its local needs and it needs to be assessed. And as there is big variety of actions that might be taken, it would be really helpful to have some kind of set of, or at least a framework on how to continue, and as well like what we can take as a business further from that. Thank you.
Thanks, Klára. Looking at the starting point for our business, well, as Nestlé Waters, we are the mineral water and health beverage category of Nestlé. So as group, we're taking a pretty broad view. Well, biodiversity action is very particular in the food business, looking at regenerative agriculture, stopping, preventing, and turning around deforestation in agriculture value chains is a clear focus for the group. For the mineral water category, it's very specific. We are looking at our catchment areas, and historically, we have pretty strong heritage in protecting the sources. And even without using the terms nature, protection, and biodiversity, we did quite a lot over the last couple of decades to protect our sources from negative influences. Talking about collaboration with farmers, shaping zero pesticide areas within the catchment areas, doing reforestation activities to protect and help restore the aquifers in the catchment area, all driven by the idea of protection. And a lot of that was already on nature-based solutions without using this term. So quite some stuff to build on. We stepped up our activities over time. So a couple of years ago, we committed to apply the Alliance for Water Stewardship standards, so driving water stewardship with other stakeholders in the catchment areas. So shaping a network for collaborative action, also looking at the catchment areas. And next step on our journey was looking at the local water cycles, their state, the impact from our operations, from other stakeholders, and we committed to regenerate or help regenerate local water cycles wherever we operate. So taking a local by local approach. And by aiming at restoring the local water cycles, we're applying as well technical as nature-based solutions that have a positive impact on the local water cycle by improving water quality, by improving infiltration in the catchment area, by restoring biodiversity, but mainly looking at the quantifiable, measurable impact on the local water cycles, plus the mutual benefits related to that. And that's where biodiversity comes into play. Wherever we implement nature-based solutions, there's automatically a positive trade-off on biodiversity. So, talking about some examples, reforestation, okay, box-ticked wetland restoration. We have some beautiful wetlands in our catchment areas that are mainly under agricultural influence degraded over time, so potential to restore these. Also, thus having a positive impact on local water cycle. Adapting our business to the risk from climate change, flood risk mitigation, helping the catchment areas to keep more water in heavy rainfall peak seasons is all part of the toolbox we're working on. Quite some nice examples around our 7 countries in Europe where we're already operating. But we're still on a learning curve. It's a long learning journey. So we have the methodology in place to try to quantify our impact on the local water cycles, but we're still a little bit short on pragmatic operational indicators for measuring impact on biodiversity. And we did some exercises on measuring, quantifying our biodiversity or nature footprint. We understand quite well that we as a sector, not only we as a company, but we're part of it, have a significant impact through climate change, main impact areas related to packaging and to logistics, so we definitely need to continue mitigating the negative impact in these areas, but we still can have a pretty strong positive impact in the catchment areas. And this is driven by the heritage of our category, which is protecting and enhancing the sources that we're entitled to use. And back to your original point, Adam, we're probably the only sector, the only industry worldwide that does actually not produce our product. We're only cooperating with nature. Our product is only shaped and produced by nature, and so it should be our bloody responsibility to help protect and enhance the nature that delivers our beautiful product. And for that, enabling framework for action, clear indicators, clear framework guidance that supports collaborative action in the catchment areas. That's why we're in this joint exercise with IUCN-NMWE.
Thank you, Klára and Achim. And indeed, this really brings us to the project itself with IUCN. You showed us in the presentation the timeline, but would you be able to tell us, once the project is done, we have a framework, what is it that actually is the next step for the company? So then there is the framework, and do you have as IUCN any expertise or knowledge or experience from actually taking these next steps with companies and especially implementing that collaborative approach?
Well, so this project is very much focused on biodiversity, and then the next part is nested in water stewardship. So the next move would be to clearly move towards water stewardship. As mentioned, freshwater ecosystem climate crisis, but to engage more with the sector, to look into water stewardship, what is really the role of each individual company and each association in terms of freshwater, their role in this freshwater ecosystem. So as IUCN, we engaged for the past 20 years with the private sector, and only since 10 years more related to water. But IUCN just turned 75, so we just had our 70th anniversary. So actually, if you think of collaboration, this collaboration, 20 years is long, but in the longer timeline of like what we've done to the planet, is relatively short. And the reason for looking into water stewardship is to connect the connect the dots on collaborative action and to look at in each individual company and in each association on water security, conservation, action, restoration, and equitable sharing of benefits. As we already heard, so the key point to enable companies to really take up this biodiversity framework is to look at their actions and then more or less group them and highlight what the sector collectively is doing, also to inspire other sectors to maybe take up similar strategies. Because we've been working a lot on corporate policy, site management, frameworks, but the important actions taken don't happen within the company fence, but once a company goes beyond the fence. So it's almost like an experiment to see, okay, what happens if companies engage more with other stakeholders within the broader context of their watershed. So it's really about scaling up and scaling out, and you already said it, mainstreaming also this way of thinking that you're part of a larger watershed. We're working concretely. We're working, for example, in Tanzania to make this shift from intensive to help actors, stakeholders in Tanzania in a river basin to make this shift from intensive agriculture to more regenerative agriculture, applying nature-based solutions. Then in Brazil, there's a platform with coffee farmers in a basin to enable them to also move towards water stewardship, and then we also provide guidance, knowledge, and the platform for this project. So yeah, I think you already took it away. So the key next steps are really mainstreaming and scaling up in short.
So we have zoomed out a little bit into our sector, and now Isabel brought it again a bit out to Tanzania and Brazil. Zoe, so I would like to now keep the wider picture, and I would like to ask you, when working on all these 12 sector-specific actions, have there been any recurring themes, something that basically you would see everywhere in all the industries that you could highlight? And if you had any experience from other sectors that our sector could learn from?
Yeah, thank you. So, first of all, the reason why we adopted that sector-specific lens is because every sector interacts with the nature in such a unique way. So if you take a step back and look at carbon, even though every different sector emits carbon in a different way, the measure is carbon, and so the thing you monitor is carbon, what you want to reduce is carbon. When it comes to nature, for some companies, their impact is because of their use of natural resources, be that water, be that petroleum to make plastics, the water bottle. Sometimes it's a dependency on healthy soils, impacts on soil pollution, etc. So you need to know where to look. So this is why we adopted this sector-specific lens. And these are very high level, but they provide for the 12 sectors where are the key places you need to look if you're in this sector. Now, once you've adopted that sector-specific lens, you can kind of take a step back and realize that some of those problems and impacts and dependencies and actions are shared. And so some of the key themes that were recurring across those sectors were, first of all, greenhouse gas emissions. I think a lot of sectors are very carbon intensive, and that's probably less of a surprise to people in this room. It's something we've been talking a lot about for a long time. Water use and water pollution was another key theme. And the two other ones I want to highlight. The first one is very much linked to water use, and it's around restoring and regenerating landscapes, which I think enable water quality to be maintained, and especially in the context of natural mineral water where you can't treat it, so you need the water quality to be high, you need healthy soils to enable that. And the last one is circularity, which is one of the key themes that we saw. So across all sectors, moving towards more circular business models, avoiding the waste of resources, ensuring materials are circulated back into the economy was one of the key things that we saw. Now, in terms of what the water sector can learn from other sectors, I think I might pivot that question into something you said, which is really interesting about Nestlé's already doing so much. I think it's nearly a need to now. Not enough. I like that. Not enough, but is already doing a lot of things and has a lot of expertise. I think it's about taking all those actions that every single sector is doing that might seem like, oh, this is what the water sector is doing, but publishing, talking about it and sharing it with other sectors so that they can start embedding those best practices in their own businesses because of these shared problems and these shared actions that are needed. And one of the ways to do that is through publishing it, for example, in a nature strategy. You'll hear more about it later at EBNS, but we are launching next month a nature campaign. It's now for nature, and we really want to encourage companies to publish nature strategies now up until 2030 and beyond, to really start talking more loudly about everything they're doing, to encourage companies to do more, to encourage companies to learn from them, and to ramp up business action on nature.
Thank you. I mean, it's great to hear that what is necessary is to talk about it, because that's exactly why we are here for these 2 days. We have still a couple of minutes, so are there any questions in the audience? I see there, so there you go.
Yeah, hi everybody. I'm Lucio from Italy, 84. Organizing the organization of the European Business Nature Summit. So thank you very much. I was very impressed by what Zoe and Isabel presented in terms of strategic high level. I mean, that's the first step. It's absolutely necessary. And I was very interested to speak with Klára before, and maybe later with Achim, about what the company are doing on the ground. Now, we are the organization that get the hands dirty, because we have 70 people specialized, engineer, ecology, forester, to fix the problem in the ground, in the catchment area. Now, 100% of the mineral water our clients, both large international organizations and small and medium enterprise, they are disrupted, they are abrupted by extreme events, droughts, landslides, too much snow or too much heavy or too much wet, wind storms. I mean, that is a huge problem, because we are finding nitrates everywhere. We are finding lack of water, because when the forests go away too quickly. So we are experimenting all the possible roles while investing in that. Because if you have a biodiverse environment, it's more resilient, and it restarts very quickly. And if you have your problem nitrates, you have specific nitrate species. So now my question, so just to let you know what we are doing on the ground. Now my question is, in the guidelines or in the activities you are doing in the field, how are you taking into consideration these extreme events? Because the international organizations say it's going to be more frequent, more severe. Thank you very much.
I think it's a question for the companies. Or
for the framework, how these extreme events are accounted, because it's not the same future we were planning to have before.
Thanks. Well, I guess one of the answers is, of course, disaster risk reduction and nature-based solutions. So nature-based solutions are key to reduce the impact of those extreme events. And also, I mean, part of the strategy is risk assessment. So low biodiversity, has risk as increases the effect of these disasters. So I think it's very connected, and I guess nature-based solutions is the key word, and it's about prevention. So actually taking action before anything happens and moving a bit from reactive to proactive. I mean, at the moment, why are we doing this? Because we need to react to the EU Code of Conduct. That's like one reason, because there is like this top-down pressure, but there's this natural pressure, right, from what is happening around us every day. So I think that is key. I think it will be revolve around nature-based solutions and prevention and risk assessment, to clearly say, okay, if we don't do this can be the risk, which is an extra incentive for biodiversity conservation.
Any other comments?
Just a quick reflection. Exactly the increasing risk from extreme weather events, droughts, heavy floodings, weather pattern fluctuations was one of the reasons why we shaped this, we call it water regeneration commitment for our category, strengthening the resilience of the local catchment areas to better cope with the impacts from climate change. And so prevention of landslides, better infiltration of heavy rainfall in the catchment areas are some of the key ambitions that we have behind this commitment. Simply to strengthen the local water cycles and help them to manage better the impact from climate change. And as well, technical solutions can help, better infrastructure, better storage capacities. So there's absolutely nothing wrong with technical solutions. But nature-based solutions like restoring existing wetlands, like restoring degraded forests upstream in the catchment areas are key elements that belong to the toolbox. And I would really appreciate to find the aspect of climate risk adaptation as a key element of the guiding framework that IUCN will come up with. I think that's of extraordinary importance for our category that's heavily reliant on water, same as other water users in the catchment areas. So absolutely valid and high priority one.
Yes, Klára.
If I may just to add and also to build what Zoe was talking about, I think and what was not mentioned as well, like there is and even you the risk assessment is really very important. And again, like we as big companies, we anyway will have the duty to do the risk assessment through the ESG legislation and so on. But the small companies, they don't, and they might be or might feel a little bit lost there, you know. And also taking into consideration that with the nature, mineral, water sector, we are talking about different age of the waters. We have the waters that are being made, I don't know, tens of years, but also thousands of years, you know. So it's not to giving up on the activities, but just, you know, to know that probably what we are doing, it will not appear very, or it will not affect our business very shortly, let's say. The same is with the infiltration area, you know, it's very important to know the context also. We have, for example, one of the sources that that the infiltration area is 200 kilometers far from the well, in fact. So we need to really think about all the context into that. And what I would like to build on the communication that Zoe was talking about, I still feel a lack of communication of the biodiversity importance. For example, I know that probably in our bubble, it might seem that it is being communicated as how, but it is not at all the reality. Because, for example, we did lots of activities, and also I'm speaking with our Czech Conservation Union and as well. At the end of the day, if you invite journalists, they will not come because they don't see. Everyone is talking about carbon footprint. It's a mantra, and it's okay. It's also important, but there is not visible the connection between the carbon footprint and biodiversity. It is still not clear to the public. And I think that we need more to communicate about the interrelationship of those two. Otherwise, it will not be taken seriously as it deserves. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions in the room or comments? Yes, Stega.
Hello. Yeah, just a quick one from me, Benjamin from Nature Metrics. So we're a biodiversity monitoring and nature intelligence company. And I heard you speak a little bit about data and sort of how you would then use that sort of in a way that both enables sharing, research, And I think would sort of complement a lot of the questions that you have about what is happening across these systems, what is happening in terms of natural processes and sort of damage to ecosystem health. So just a quick question, sort of across the board, sort of what is your thinking in terms of the wider partnership with the IUCN and sort of data use, data transparency, and how you can sort of use that as a tool also, I think, for engagement and sort of, working with the citizens around these catchments and with the wider public.
Thanks. Well, this is always the million-dollar question on data. Where do we get the data from, and what are we doing with data? And everybody knows there's apparently lots of data out there, but no one has access to it. So that's a very good question. I guess in a local context, to see who holds data, who knows about the catchment area, the biodiversity. In discussions with some smaller water companies, they said we don't even know what our watershed exactly looks like. We have punctual hydrological studies, and we know how much water we can extract, but there's no data sharing between companies. So I guess there we need to look a bit more into what national associations can do, what larger companies can do. And just to add to what Klára said before, also on maybe it also relates to data sharing, to actually make it clear to the public how different topics are connected, how water and climate are connected. I think this can also be shown through data. Just a side note, also this year in the climate COP, 2 years ago in climate COP, we finally managed to bring a bit biodiversity into the climate discussion. This year, water will be a big part of the climate COP, and there will also be there's lots of country-driven initiatives. Like one initiative is the Freshwater Challenge, which is a country-driven initiative to leverage support for restoration of freshwater ecosystems. And there the same question remains. So then, how do you monitor all of these systems? So I don't have the answer for that question, but I think on a local sectorial level, we can find out who holds the data and how to best share data.
We are past 12, so short reaction if there is one.
Only advertisement on. So measuring, monitoring biodiversity is a key challenge, and we're lacking methodologies. And I think one stream in our joint activities should be putting data from studies that we're working on the table to enable the shared learning journey within our sector. And related to nature metrics, I think the learnings from 2 studies based on eDNA in Spain and UK that are currently done with nature metrics should be part of the package that's put on the table. So far we have only the baseline service ongoing, so at least sooner or later we'll know what to look at particularly. It's a learning journey, and innovative technologies can clearly play a role, but it needs to be some joint measurement and some joint KPIs that can be used across the sector, and some certain level of harmonization sooner or later will do us good, I believe.
Thank you very much. I think all the other questions can be then taken off record because we are now past 12. I would just like to close the whole panel with 10 seconds each. So the companies get a question, what are your next steps on this journey? And the organization will get a question, what are your kind of immediate advice you can give us in 10 seconds each of you? Let's start from there.
Immediate action, the journey continues. So prioritizing the nature-based solutions within our project portfolio in the catchment areas, trying to consolidate the learnings and put them on the table with the sector so we can all learn from this.
Thank you, Klára.
Yeah, I would just agree, and I think that it is essential to get on board as well the small and medium enterprises and to convince them that it is really important.
Thank you. A piece of advice from IUCN?
Well, basically to be proactive, so to look at your role in the watershed and different connections. And even though if it's a small company, okay, we're only a small company, but everyone has their part to play. So proactiveness.
Yes, and finally, last but not least, a piece of advice from Business for Nature.
Start talking about it, or you shouting about it with other stakeholders and publish all of that in your nature strategy, or at least embed nature in your business strategy.
Thank you very much, and that is the end of this side event. I would like to thank you all for being here with us. I would like to thank the presenters and panelists. I would like to also thank all the people that joined us online, and very importantly, I would like to thank the organizers that allowed us to actually run the side event here in the venue of the summit. So thank you very much, and have a good 2 days of talks on business and nature.